start.
Oh, Fred is not coming?
No, yeah, Fred's gonna not be here tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, Fred's not gonna
Okay.
Yeah, Feli's coming too.
But you can come closer there.
Hmm?
You can come.
Yeah, Feli's on the way too.
Police on the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she's late. We're waiting for her.
I know.
No, start the meeting, please.
Yes,
Oh,
please.
yeah.
Let's even stop waiting for people, man.
Yeah. No, they said everybody's four of us is here. Ready?
Alright, yeah, so let's get started. Let's just call to order. Welcome, folks. November Executive Committee meeting. I think we can skip the intros today. Everyone knows each other
Yeah, that's true.
for the most part.
Any excuses for the
Then you sit down, take a seat, bring your chair.
Yeah.
we got it.
Actually, you can use it. Let's use the mic today. Let's use the mic today. Let's give it a shot. It works. You can take it out. Yeah, you might want to take it off. You probably just cut something like that.
You could probably, well, it's been broken.
Hey, broken.
No, no.
You just
Who said it's been
Yeah,
broken?
this is broken.
Yeah, that thing's broken, but you can use the mic.
The mic definitely works.
The mic
I'll turn
definitely.
it out. So someone can stand here, maybe face this way, and so I can
Or you
take
can
it
talk
across.
hard.
Yeah, that works. Those need.
Plug it in, huh?
That's not like that. Thanks. Go around. This guy's. Why don't you come in? We'll be fine.
Oh, right.
The front door is open.
Okay, we're good. Yep.
It's something between the door and
Okay. Well, that works.
Turn it up for you, because we do the most. It will pick you up.
That wasn't gonna answer too much. But, okay.
So you can sit here. I think we sit here to pick you up.
No, it can work out.
Okay.
Alright, yeah, so, welcome to our November meeting. What committee do we have here today? We have,
Environmental protection.
Alright. And station. So, let's go into, committee reports. Who wants to begin? Debbie?
Okay, so good evening, everyone.
You
The
can come for the mic if you want.
Environmental Protection
You
Committee.
can come if you want to, use the mic too. If you want to use the mic, feel free to, come use it.
the.
No, I'm sure I'm fine like
yeah,
this.
She's good, yeah, that
Alright.
iPad can pick up that good
Pick you up.
fish.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Debbie Timothy, and I am the chair of CB9 Environmental Protection Committee. We held a meeting on November 7th, and we spoke about the rollout of Department of Sanitation containerization project. We felt as a committee that the project was rolling out too quickly and people were not able to get the containers that they, were asked to purchase, for many different reasons. So as a committee, we thought about joining some of the other community boards, with a letter. However, we, requested that the, Chief Mendez, attend our next meeting to talk about this and try to get some sense out of the whole rollout project and, answer some of the questions that we have. So the information was, we made that request with Khalid for Dante. I'm not sure where it is right now, but, hopefully we can get Chief Mendez to attend our, December meeting. And, that's it for my committee.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They had a public hearing, like, last week,
Yeah, sometimes.
last week, I think it was on Monday.
Yeah?
So I testified on video, so
All right.
I wrote a couple of points which, I think are negatives towards the whole program.
Because I ordered the cans and I'm still waiting. Some of my neighbors are still waiting. And it's like, okay, what do you do? Nobody's saying, well, we have to put the garbage out, so,
Right.
yeah. So there's a lot of questions out there that needs to be answered and, hopefully we can get some answers at our next meeting. And I believe that he probably should come to the general membership meeting, and do a presentation on the whole project and its rollout, so, yeah. So that's it for me for the Environmental Protection Committee.
Okay, any other questions?
I'll update in my report.
Okay.
I would recommend also seeing how the rollout is going on the commercial corridors, because they started earlier. I'm sure Vanessa and Merchants will comment on that.
Okay.
I know my observation is like some of the appropriate buildings, here she is, we were just talking about, containerization.
I totally agree with that one.
Some of the
I
apartment
mean,
buildings, go ahead.
My question is, if you don't have food, why do you have to pay extra money to have a container to prevent rats if you don't have any food in your garbage? Like, we don't have any food in our garbage, just paper, like plastic, and a lot of plastic. I should be fine for all the plastic that we get used, but
I'm not sure rats are gonna eat that.
they're not gonna eat that, so it's like, okay.
But the whole thing about it is, I mean, they had a project a program where they were getting rid of plastic, and you're still asking people to buy
I know.
plastic, come on.
I know, we should be reducing the amount of plastic. Also, like, who are we buying these garbage cans from?
Well, they said that they had them, well, the DSNY has their website. Also, the Home Depot. But I
Wait, I thought
I
you
understand they
had-
sold out.
I thought you had to buy the New York City one
Well,
in
they
2
had,
years.
they have some agreement with Home Depot, so you could purchase them there. But my understanding is that they're sold out. So,
The official vendor
Yeah,
has already made about $40 million.
right, this
There
is
you
what
go.
I'm talking about.
there you go,
Like, who is this vendor?
there you go.
Like, Mr. Adams' friend, maybe?
There you go.
Highly suspect.
Yeah. So that's what's frustrating as a business owner, homeowner, I don't know.
It's
to me.
a tax.
Yeah,
No, I was just gonna say, some of the apartment buildings in Manhattan have started doing containers already. And I think it's doable for many of them, like, they might need like like 100-unit building might need like 12 containers or something like that. But it's doable, it's just I question why, if they already have containers, they have to go buy new ones. Are they gonna have to?
Those are
buy
some
new
of the
ones?
questions.
I'm surprised there's no lawsuits.
But my thing is, okay, we're not California where they go by and pick up the cans with
Right, with the machine that
with
they
the
don't touch
machine,
it.
you know, so.
Right,
How's that gonna work with all the cars parked on the street? What, you gonna lift the cans over the cars? Makes no sense.
What I've seen them, and what they're doing is they're like dragging them to an open spot and then out into the street, and then they pick up the can behind the truck and empty it.
You're saying dragon. First of all, you know, dragon, you know, somebody purchased that can and not for them to, you know, drag it.
It's a wee
They're made to be drugged.
not for nothing, but my compost bucket got eaten through by a squirrel,
And Suki,
so.
are they gonna
I don't
drag
know. I
each
feel like a rat could
individual's
probably
can
do
back to their homes, to their houses where they pick it up?
Exactly, they just throw them. They literally throw them. Sometimes it's by the neighbor as
They
opposed
just
to
leave
your
it.
house.
Yeah, they don't leave it in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To get
Yeah.
hit by cars or
Well,
blown away in the wind.
So like so far what
Or
I've
like
seen.
someone to take and like.
Yeah.
So far what I've
Play
seen on
visitors.
my block, and mind you, it's a low density block, is they just grab the can, they dump it, and then they like toss it back wherever it was, and,
Testing.
you know, but how are they gonna handle this when an apartment building has 12? I don't know. I do know that, you know, it's already being done in Manhattan, and, for some of the apartment buildings, it seems to be okay, but, you know,
If you have massive containers, so it's harder to steal them, they won't blow away in the wind. I used to put my garbage in a can,
Yeah.
a plastic can, but then I stopped because I saw the way they were treating the can. You know,
Like just dump tossing.
yeah, tossing and breaking them, I mean, so like, forget it, I'm not gonna do that. But I mean, but again, once they empty the can, you know, if there's a high wind, your can's gonna end up on the other side.
It's gonna wind up
Yeah,
somewhere
end up
else.
500 feet away. For
Alright,
sure.
it's been about 10 minutes. Well, since Felice is coming in, I wanna move on from this report, but before we do, that'd be really good if you could just summarize it for, you know, for Felice and for Vanessa who are now coming in. You wanna do that? Yeah.
You go, Debbie, do it.
No, I was just, a quick summary might be good. I think it'll be shorter than it usually is.
Yes. We'll get bad habits.
No, but I mean,
Apologize for being late.
Oh,
good.
it'll be quicker than usual.
Huh?
This will be quicker than usual.
Great.
This isn't gonna be a long, a 10 p.m. one. Okay, so yeah, thanks for coming. Welcome. Oh, yeah, Debbie. Huh? Yeah, Debbie, if you could summarize your report again.
Oh, okay, so,
About
my name is Debbie Timothy, and good evening, everyone, again. My name is Debbie Timothy, and I am the chair of the Environmental Protection Committee at CD9. So we held a meeting on November 7th, and we spoke about the rollout of the Department of Sanitation containerization project. And there are more questions and answers, so we made a request to have Chief Mendez come out to our next meeting. I'm not sure where that is with Dante, but that was a request made by the committee, and hopefully we can get some of those questions and that we have answered, and some of the residents also have questions, so hopefully we can get them answered, because you know, the project is rolling out so quickly and people are not prepared fully. I'm still waiting on my garbage cans. Some of the neighbors on my block are still waiting. Some of them, they tried going to Home Depot to purchase and they're sold out. So, you know, it's like, well, what do we do? I tried calling headquarters Sunday to find out what should I do with my, well, you know, if a neighbor should ask, what should they do with their garbage if they're still waiting on the cans and no answer? And I called several times, so. Mr. Rosenberger attended a hearing that they had on Monday, and he mentioned that, you know, some of the same things, you know, so hopefully we can get, you know, someone from the SNY to I'm saying come to the general board meeting and talk about this, if not the committee meeting, the next committee meeting. So hopefully we can get, you know, some of those answers that we so deserve as residents.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's your report. Suki, you're up next.
Okay.
If you wanna use the mic, feel free. It still works.
I'll try to speak up. The land use committee, met and we had 2 applications before us. The 341 Troy Avenue variance and the 7399 Empire Boulevard rezoning. We also went over a little bit the city council's fair housing framework, which is expected to, be implemented beginning in 2025. They're looking at doing housing production and preservation targets for every district. You know, because there's been considerable disparity in the amount of housing production among districts. You know, so they're trying to propose some measures to help districts produce more housing. So the 341 Troy Avenue variance, the applicant is seeking to amend a previously granted variance to change the unit sizes in his building. The original variance grant was to increase quite significantly, I think, the zoning density, from a site that is zoned for townhouses. It's quite a large site, it's about 16,000 square feet, to one that would allow for a small apartment building, a 5-story apartment building. So the proposal would have 26 condo units at market rate. And so this is not the first time the applicant has been before the board. He originally came before the board, I think in 2009. The variance was initially granted in 2010. And over the years, no construction work was commenced, but he applied to the board to the BSA, the Board of Standards and Appeals, several times, for changes to the plan, or extensions of time to complete construction. And the first time that I heard from it was in 2022, when he was applying for an extension of time, because his previous extension of time had expired. And he said it was because of the COVID pandemic that he wasn't able to do any construction. So, you know, I think we were a little, you know, kind of like wondering what's going on, and but he promised he would be completed with construction by June 2024. Anyway, now he's seeking a change in the plans. He has to go back to the BSA for that. And he's told us that the reason he hadn't started any construction in the last 2 years was because he wasn't able to obtain financing, but now he is financing, so he wants to start construction, and he thinks he can be completed by 2026. So the board, you know, the committee voted to support the amendment insofar as we're not opposed to the changes in the unit sizes. It's not changing the overall envelope of what was already granted. And I think, you know, after 15 years, most people want to see something get done. But, you know, I think the history of this application and frankly the original grant raises a lot of concerns about the way in which the variance process was used.
Test.
There we go.
You know, today, I think an upzoning of 350%, which is what he was granted, would not be allowed without mandatory affordable housing. That's been the policy since 2015, when we passed MIH and ZQA. And, you know, I think the fact that these extensions were really kind of due to, I mean, by his own admission, changing market conditions, changing conditions affecting his ability to get financing and so on. You know, it's our understanding that a variance is really not designed to kind of alleviate these market-related hardships. It's really designed to alleviate hardships that are related to a specific physical condition that's unique to the site and is inherent in the site, given the market conditions at the time. And, you know, obviously market conditions have changed since then. And, you know, I think, you know, the physical condition that was cited was an environmental contamination from the previous use of the site as a gas station, which again, it's not clear that that's really a condition that's inherent to the site. You know, variance is not supposed to be granted for conditions that were created by the applicant or by a predecessor in title, meaning that the gas station owner. So again, it raises, and I think particularly, you know, when I talk about 7399 Empire, you know, which is also a former industrial site, also likely has contamination and is gonna have to go through a cleanup program. You know, it raises questions about whether applicants with these environmental conditions on their site, and there are many, you know, from Franklin Avenue, like all of them are former industrial sites, whether they can use the variance process
to get a substantial upzoning because of soil contamination and sidestep the rezoning process where the community and the council member would have a chance to negotiate for whatever it is, you know. So, those were, I think, although, like I said, we support the amendment in and of itself, we felt it was important to raise these questions and to remind the board that, and the applicant that if he blew past the current 2026 deadline, that we wouldn't want to grant another extension. So that was unanimously passed. 7399 Empire, as some of you may know, that is currently a vacant one-story industrial building. Part of the lot is in all commercial zoning, part of the lot is in a medium-density residential zoning. The applicant has proposed increasing the zoning density, again, by about 300% or so, to allow for two 13-story residential towers with 285 units. Of which 25 or 30% would be affordable under mandatory inclusionary housing at 60 to 80% of AMI. And he would do 2 floors of above ground commercial space, which would be large format retail, and possibly a supermarket, and 1 floor of underground commercial space. So they're seeking our approval for a rezoning on that one. They suggested that they were in talks with HPD and with the council member to increase the percentage of affordability from 30% to 50%, but they weren't really able to commit to give details on what AMI that would be at. So they also said that if they weren't granted the zoning variance, that the as of right would be 2 floors of commercial. And they said that the retail was likely to be something like a Burlington coat factory, plus a supermarket again. Sorry.
Terrible.
And plus they would be doing 191 spaces of parking. So the committee debated this until late into the night. I had laid out several, obviously we could vote no for the current as of right option. We could vote, which would likely be all commercial, although it actually does permit residential. He just wasn't intending to do that. Or we could vote for yes for what the developer is proposing, which is the full 13 stories and 285 units. Or we could vote for a variety of zoning options in between that would offer some level of upzoning and mandatory inclusionary housing, but not as much as the developer is asking for. So I think, while everybody, I think, wanted to see an improvement from what the developer was asking for, we were not able to reach an agreement on what option we did want to approve. The committee was essentially deadlocked 5-5 on several of the options in between. And so we adjourned and decided to table this until the December meeting. And, hopefully people, I think it was a lot to ask people to make a decision, right after the presentation and the public hearing. And so I think the concerns that were raised in the public hearing, a lot of them were related to the density of the site, given how many units are coming in the immediate vicinity. There's about 1,100 units within a few block radius of the site that are coming, including the 962 Franklin, which is going to go up to, I think, 355 units at this point. just what would be the effects on quality of life, on traffic, on schools and sewers and so on. And as well as I think a lot of people wanted to see deeper affordability than 60 or 80% of AMI. The height of the building was a concern. CB9's zoning guidelines have said that we don't want to go above 9 stories, even though some of the buildings in the area, like Ebbets Field, are tall. And actually, when we asked the developer why they put this forward, knowing what our zoning guidelines were, they actually turned around and blamed it on city planning. They said that it was the city's suggestion. So we don't know, But so that's where things stand, and hopefully with a little bit more time to consider and maybe more information, we'll be able to come up with an option that benefits the community as much as possible and limits some of the environmental problems. So I'm sorry that was very long, but.
No, you got it. It's all right.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yes.
It seems like there's things that we can do with affordability for the apartments, but is there anything we can do about affordability for the retail? And also, just like a point, Burlington Coat Factory is one of the biggest shoplifting locations
Yep.
in Brooklyn. So like to put that on Empire is not good, just a bad look. So we could say, we don't want Burlington Coat Factory. I think that's a really bad thing to go
I think
there.
that's a good location for
It's
that.
a bad idea, like bringing in shoplifting there, no. That's what I would say. And also, is it just 2 big retail locations, like a supermarket and a Burlington, a Target, or whatever? Or is there a possibility that those get broken into smaller?
Nothing is really guaranteed right now, to be honest with you. Until the building literally goes up and they sign a lease, whatever they say is just whatever they say. In fact, there's absolutely, if we give them one of the zoning options, there are a lot of zoning options actually that give them flexibility to decide how much commercial they want to put in versus how much residential. And so until they actually lease out the start building, there really will be no guarantees whether they're gonna do all residential, mostly commercial, right? There are only certain zoning options that guarantee residential and certain zoning options that guarantee commercial. But if you give them one of the ones that guarantees neither, we really don't know what they're gonna do. What they're saying now is what their plans are, but once the rezoning is granted, if it's a zone that gives them options, there's no way of saying. And as far as affordable commercial, again, there's no zoning mechanism to enforce that. There are districts where the zoning rules specify that you can't have more than a certain amount of frontage for a store, so that tends to produce like smaller stores instead of chain stores, but as far as affordability, there's nothing that I know of. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't ask for it, it just means that there's not a zoning mechanism for that.
So I was at that meeting, and it was a long time, because I came back and you guys were still at it at 11 o'clock, okay? And from what I took from there is that they did not want it to be rezoned. What I also took from there is that we did not want any additional building to be built. Put into account that there is Franklin, 960 Franklin, am I correct to say that number, yes? That is yet to be built, and they're drilling now. We have also, that's over 300 buildings. We also have the one on Franklin and Crown. On one side alone, it's 591 apartments. That's more than Ebbets Field and Tivoli Towers, okay? And this is on Montgomery, Franklin, Crown, And on Montgomery, there's over 200 apartments, and those are condominiums. So no one is put into account that we need schools, we need to keep our hospitals, matter of fact, we need to add on. So at this point, we see that we have at least, I said 1,000, 2,000, that's in the community, okay? Beyond, I mean, for what we hold right now, that's what we can, that's what we were set to hold. But to have 2,000 more people added to this, the density is unreal, okay? And it's not a quality life, okay? So they say one thing and they do another, okay? So, we oppose this, and it's gonna be a fight on that one, okay? Because we have enough already. If we keep on saying the density is real, we're dealing with it. There's no parking, people are literally fighting out there, fighting. And you're dealing with zip cars, you're dealing with bike lanes, oh my God. I can't even get Washington Avenue straight for us to have a stop light or a stop sign. 2 people were killed on Washington Avenue in Montgomery, 2. Okay, 2 pedestrians, a cycler, we can't even cross the street. What are we doing here? And nobody's listening?
And I'm listening.
Yeah, I know, I mean, like, I'm not referring to you, I mean, come on, it's enough. We're not getting what they say we are. My children were born and raised here. Can they get an apartment? I'm fighting for city employees to get out of city shelters. Have that been addressed? No. Okay. Okay, so what are we doing?
Yeah, a big part of the problem is we don't even know what discussions the developer is conducting with HPD. I asked them specifically, what programs are you talking about? Because there are only certain programs that address low and very low incomes, and they wouldn't say.
What?
So, I think if the council member is part of these discussions, it's important that, we are able to have discussions with her. The other thing with respect to commercial is, somebody on the committee raised that there were already a lot of other supermarkets in the area, so why would they be bringing another supermarket? Because, there's the Lidl coming at the corner of Empire and Bedford, there's Western Beef half a block down. And they kind of, I don't know how to say this, they kind of winked at us and said, well, there are retail bankruptcies all the time. Some of these other supermarkets might go bankrupt, and
Yeah, I heard him say that.
and it's good for you all to have more competition because it keeps prices down.
That I understand, but
So
that other statement I did not understand.
So, the environmental assessment actually does consider what would be the effect on local businesses of a significant new commercial development coming. So that's maybe where the conversation about mitigation comes in. What are they gonna do in mitigation of the effects that they might be having on local businesses? And I mean, of course, these other sites of supermarkets like Western Beef, they're also potential development sites.
And then my other question would be, you have other areas that people are seeking, they're looking for a place where you can build, but they don't spread it out. They only concentrate their areas and their points, different locations. And even when the density is already there. So it's all about money and profit. It's not about quality of life for you to have a place.
Are there any restrictions regarding population density per square mile, for instance?
There are not, it's not the way that zoning is done in New York City. I think that is an interesting point because it could be done that way, right? And I imagine that it might be done that way in some parts of the country, but in New York City, it's not. In New York City, we essentially just assign a zoning density to a geographical area that we've outlined on a map, and we say that anything in that zone can build up to that density. We don't really look at kind of a more global density look, right? And in particular in New York City, we have a lot of existing buildings that predate any zoning law whatsoever, and many of them are built over the existing zoning density. So if we're not taking that into account, right, then you know, that sort of throws off all the calculations. You're not starting from a clean slate where we say, okay, everything here is gonna be 7 stories and a 3 density, and therefore that's what our neighborhood is gonna look like. You're really starting with, like, you know, some buildings maybe a 5 and some maybe a 1, and, you know, maybe you have areas where, like, everything is a 5 and the city has zoned it for a 4. You know, like, it's just, like,
So that's a good point, maybe we should look at that, the density.
There's no, yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
so
the
let's,
reason.
before we move on, I have a question for, you, Rob Suki. Any more concerns? No? Okay. So we have one voting item from you, which is the BS variance,
yes.
right? And the others he'll take care of in the next meeting, because you were deadline last one?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, the next committee will be Vanessa's.
Okay, so, economic development, we are putting together a shopping guide for CB9. And we were just gonna focus on a couple corridors, but we decided we're gonna do the whole district. So we have assigned, we have a list that's done, but it needs to get categorized to the categories that we thought were best, like food and drink, retail encompasses a lot, but there were like general services, business services, etc. So basically we assigned different corridors to different people to get it recategorized by the next meeting so we could put it into a web page where we had like QR codes people could scan and get there. So we were gonna print out little like QR codes we put around, like learn about CB9, like what businesses are around you. I don't know how it's going for the whole committee as far as how much work everyone's getting done. I'm hopeful that we're gonna finish it, but we'll see. It's a big project. Everyone was like very, we can do it, but then no one's done anything yet.
Did you guys think about including
Lisa
Beta
has.
NYC,
At least that.
On the
Lisa has,
project?
of course. A what?
Beta NYC on the project?
What does that mean?
It's a group that they do that type of work. And they've been working with some community boards, like I believe in Brooklyn and Manhattan, to do projects like that. Maybe you guys should connect and see, you know,
Dante, do you know
how they
these
can
people?
help.
Who is it?
I can
Beta?
show the Beta NYC, you know who they are. Yeah, Noel, yeah.
I mean, it's not actually that much work that we have left to do. We've done the majority of it.
But in terms of the map, you mentioned a map. and
Well,
they're
we're not
good
gonna
at
do
that.
a map. We're gonna do more like a list.
Like a guide.
So basically, you're gonna be able to search corridors and then within corridors, types, right? So say you want food and drink, and I'll give you the list of food and drink in alphabetical order, all the food and drink. Say you want bodega grocery, all the bodega grocery stores will come up. I'm just a little worried that everyone's not gonna get their work done and we're not gonna have it done by a holiday, so I don't know. We'll see what happens. I can only do so much. So everybody said that they were gonna do it, we'll see.
So not that I wanna give you more work.
Yeah.
But my sense, you know, with some of these developers is they're struggling a little bit to figure out what kind of retail would succeed in our community.
Mhm.
You know, because, like, for example, I think the supermarket thing came from Crystal Hudson's development framework that said, one of the, like, brownie points that you're gonna get is if you put a fresh food supermarket. But not thinking that while there may be areas that are food deserts, like for example to the east in Crown Heights, this particular area is not. And I've heard a number of them say that, you know, supermarkets have kind of been like a consistent, you know, like, place where we know people are gonna spend their money, we're not really sure what else is gonna succeed. And I think in a community like this, that's sort of rapidly changing and, you know, like, some people will complain about stores that are too bougie, and some people will complain about, you know, not having not high enough quality stores, like, it's difficult for outsiders to really understand what's gonna succeed and what kinds of rents they can charge.
Right.
And so I wonder if it might help for our committee to sponsor some type of a resident survey about their shopping habits or shopping patterns. I know when Pratt was advising Flatbush Avenue, they did that, just to see what people would like to see. I tend to think that rather than asking people what kinds of stores do you want, because people will say, I want this, I want that, it's where are you spending your money? What do you spend your money on? And I think SBS, when they survey corridors, do that. Like they have a list of categories like food and drink, tobacco and alcohol, clothing and, you know, whatever, like what percentage of your spending is on each of these categories. And I wonder if that might be a helpful thing for everyone.
Probably.
But not that I wanna give you more work.
Also, can we get like a Trader Joe's instead of a regular supermarket?
Oh, he did mention
Bring the
Trader
price
Joe's. Didn't
down.
he mention that?
We're really
That
talking
you can
about
possibly have a Trader Joe's.
I
It was
thought-
mentioned.
Don't
I mean-
know, I'll have to go back to the tape and see. I'll have to go back to the tape and see.
I mean, on one hand, like I don't wanna
Unless
add
something's-
traffic to our neighborhood,
Right.
because that would be like
Yeah.
a draw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there are like bigger box stores that people would want if we surveyed them. Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe after the holiday season, we could do that. And then we could suggest it to the developer, like this is what people want, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, and I think it'd be super helpful just for like all of the landlords around here that, you know, seem to.
But I think
I think sporting goods
you
store would be
should,
good.
I do too.
yeah, I think that information should be put out there so that the residents have input.
Like right
Oh,
now.
yeah, no, I mean, it should be a resident survey, that's the point, and then, you know,
I mean, we
like-
could also suggest things
Right.
and then have people say, yes, I want this, instead of just like letting it go. Cause maybe they'll say Burlington Go Factory and we don't want them to
no.
say that, you know?
Right. I mean, I don't think, that's why I'm saying, I don't
You're
think
gonna
it
miss
should,
it
I don't
when
think it
it's
should be
in
a
the
thing where you say,
Just put the
what
top
store
and
do
the
you
bottom.
want? Right, cause people will say the first, anything that pops into their head,
Yeah.
it's where are you spending your money? I think that's the bottom line, right? Cause we've all seen like a lot of these cute little like stores and restaurants that are out of business in 2 years, and
Yes.
everyone's like, what happened? And it's
Yeah.
like, well, I guess not enough people were actually spending money there,
Yeah, it was
and
expensive.
But I think it's an overpopulation of restaurants that I see here. It's popping up all over the place, restaurants.
People do like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
see the restaurants pop up next to each other.
Well, then they
Yeah.
need to
Yeah, but we
focus
only
it
have
in
like the least restaurants compared to districts 8 and 14.
over here.
We barely have
Oh, wait,
two.
you're here, but where I am, it's not. Because we have all of Washington, we have Franklin.
Washington has restaurants on it?
There's
Oh,
no
yes.
restaurants on
There's no
Washington.
restaurants on Washington?
Yes, there is. You
West-
gotta go further down past.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
not
it's
in
out
our
of the district.
district.
No,
But
yeah,
right,
that's
that's-
the district. Or the other side.
Or go back towards,
So bring some, so do I have to go to the district? You mean Washington is in the block?
like Winthrop and
Washington
Hawthorne
doesn't
and,
cross Winthrop.
We are
Washington
right
doesn't get that
there.
far.
That's
That's
right
not
there.
right.
Washington has like no restaurants on it.
Well,
There's
once,
nothing there.
excuse me to say, I only have that as a focal point, but you know that's a long strip of residents. I didn't mean to say Washington Avenue per se, cause there's only a store there, or Montgomery, but I meant, you know, further down, each way. Not on Washington per se, because.
Right.
But I think a
But
lot,
it's-
a lot of these
but that's
questions
not
about
our
what the
space and
district can support in terms of businesses will be answered by finding out where people are spending their money.
Exactly.
Because we know how many people
I
live
didn't even
here,
hear that over
right?
the
And
other
we have a
side.
sense of what median incomes are, but where are people spending their money?
I have a
Put down Sporting Good.
Yeah.
We have a park right there. It makes sense. We have bikers, right? It makes
I also
sense.
think a good move might be trying to survey residents to see
Johnson's.
where they tend to spend their money. That might be a good idea for your committee. You know, because economic development could also like figure out what's working. Maybe they could help others who are not experiencing what's working figure something out.
Yeah, but these are gonna be big box stores, they're not gonna be like people who are figuring it out or moving into the space, right?
I mean, yeah, it's a lot of space, the site is a big footprint, it's 38,000 square feet. And you know, the as of right permits like 2 times the footprint, so the as of right permits like 76,000 square feet. So that's why they're looking at big box stores, I mean, it'd be hard to
I
fill
mean,
that size of a
in the big
space.
box
Yeah.
stores pay they pay on time, that kind of thing, like, there's more in it for
They
them.
have
than-
resources, maybe you should use, since they said Target has a lot of money, so
Right?
use
Yeah,
Target
some
and
people
make them pay for like a
steal.
small business, something here in the district, make them spend their money.
Right.
Yeah,
That-
give
that's
them
easy.
work. They
Should also
wanna stay
ask, say,
there.
ask for
Stay there.
Target, and it's
That's
right
what I
down the
was just
street
saying.
from Evans Field, we should probably ask for a pharmacy, since every
Yes.
pharmacy continues to close.
That's right.
Right.
Ideally,
Targets all
something-
have, the bigger targets have pharmacies.
Right.
and-
Yeah. Yeah.
We should,
We
like,
should aim for
Direct
that.
them.
direct them accordingly so
Yes.
we get what we want.
Right.
We need the pharmacy, they've already mentioned Target,
That works.
it's there.
I too mentioned a roller skating ring, I also mentioned a bowling alley that we lost, these two things. We need activities too.
Oh, no.
Yes, you know.
We did that baby because we had
We lost the
nothing.
movies, no movies, forget about the
No
movie
movies,
house.
yeah.
Oh, forget about that, so.
I mean, the other day, this is random, but there's a Chelsea Piers on
Right.
Dean Street now, underneath one of
Yeah,
those
they
fancy
opened it,
buildings.
Yeah, Prosperity.
It's amazing down there. They have birthday parties, there's
I
like
had no
gymnastics,
idea.
swimming pool.
Yeah.
But you would never know, you know,
Chelsea.
Dean Street used to be
The
like
Chelsea Piers across
nothing,
the street.
like a wasteland.
What?
Now it's like
Where is that?
luxury
Where's that?
building
Dean
after
Street, they opened it a
another.
few months ago.
Chelsea
This was
Piers?
this-
Yeah.
Oh, so I think, I
It's
was.
crazy down
It's
there.
always
There's like
granted no
big
pool,
parks
though.
that look like Manhattan.
The only branch of the pool.
So
They
I
have
would,
pools.
They do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's
That's fine.
so I
Dean
would be
Street?
remiss in
Yeah.
not
Street,
saying
like,
that committee
few
members
blocks
also
up.
mentioned
Where?
need for
Across by
office
Venice.
space, including
Yes.
for this
Dean and
board.
Yes, that's the first thing, yes,
You know,
office space.
so that's.
No,
No, no,
like,
no, that's just for
That's
us.
something,
Standard?
can we,
Yeah,
can
that is,
Yeah.
can we look into having office space? You know, for CB9?
And I know it's always been a consistent, you know, I always hear from people in the community that they're looking for affordable event space. You know,
That
there's,
is right.
there's not a lot of that.
There's not a lot of that.
It's been growing though.
Okay,
Although, a lot, like, our local church lets us use the church for meetings, but I don't know how many of the churches do.
right, so you want a neutral place for,
You're gonna get
Different
neutral
religions.
because we can't get
you know,
one church.
Right.
so that would be good. Okay, so can I, cause I walked in, sorry for being late, you were talking about garbage pails, there's not enough?
DSNY containerization program.
So, you need more, or what is it that you need?
Well, you know, there are things, people have a lot of questions about the whole program. You know, people ordered cans and they haven't been delivered yet. They informed them that they would Home Depot is sold out. So there's a lot of questions out there about the whole program that needs to be answered. So we're trying to get Chief Mendez to attend our next meeting, or even if he can come and present it. The general board meeting, on, you know, this topic, so that people can get their, you know, questions answered and know where the program is right now, because we don't know. And what do you do without a can? If you have garbage to put out,
And they only
you
have
know, you
a,
have to put it out.
they only gave a period of time to do this, am I correct?
Right,
Like
they
January?
have deadlines, but, you know, I don't feel as though the program is, you know, the program was done correctly. Even if they're trying to, you know, curb rats or whatever, as they say, you know, they have to, you know, they have to speak with the residents that live in these communities and get a sense as to what their thoughts are. You don't just roll out a program and you don't know, you know, how people, what thoughts they have about it. You know, and who can afford these cans? You know, some people can't even pay their rents and, you know, so
Yes.
there's a lot of questions that I
My
have
concern
answers.
is that these cans will be really heavy, and how do we expect for the sanitation men, I'm gonna tell you what I think. To run efficiently and not such a strain or for it to be problematic for everyone. And I know that upstate, they have a device where it slips through the can, yeah, and then it lifts in. So, I mean, they could wheel it to it if that's the case, but for what I see upstate, they just push the garbage pail out, the arms goes through, lifts it in, and then push it out, and then pushes back
I
out.
don't think that
Yeah,
our
you can't
system
do
is
that.
equipped
Yeah,
for
our
that.
suites might
I
not
get
be
it.
good.
I get it, but I'm thinking that if they do have something that will to it, you know, I don't know, without lifting it, I don't know. I don't
And then
know.
with the cars backed, how do you,
How do you pull it out?
That works out,
So,
every
you know.
house has a driveway, but.
Yes.
Right.
Plus
Can't
it's
do
saying
that
it's-
here.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, that's not,
So they're gonna bring different kind of sources.
yeah,
Right.
Right.
or different
Or a
program.
different program.
Alright, so back to the agenda though. Any more questions for Vanessa? And,
I think Vanessa did a good job.
Yes.
yeah.
I like your.
I think I got a question for her
Yeah.
about this,
Mhm.
Dean Street,
Chelsea
The
Piers.
Chelsea
Chelsea
Piers,
Piers,
yeah.
yes.
do they have programs there
Yeah.
in terms of the pool and things like
Yeah,
that?
there was an adult swim when I was in there. Yeah. My
I
kid
need
was
that
at a birthday
information,
party
yeah.
and she said they kicked them out because the adults came to swim. I was like, oh, that
I
sounds
gotta
great.
check it out.
Sounds great. I love that. Yeah, it looked really
Adult
cool. They had
swim, right?
soccer
Is that-
fields
is that-
inside, the whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes. No, not our district. That's not.
Yes, right,
that's- I think
Yeah,
it's-
Prospect
I think
Heights.
it's-
It's
Right,
pretty
but
close.
adults
That's the
need something
it,
too.
right?
That's
It's
what
our
I'm
neighbor,
So,
just like a fig.
yeah.
Okay.
Right. So no more questions for Vanessa, no more elaboration
Okay.
concerns?
That's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the other committee is transportation and that is the one that I chair, so I'll dive into that. We tackled two main things in November. The main one was, so there was another feedback session. We had it in a new format where we had the entire committee present. We had quorum plus, we had DOT reps there, and we had the public come. And historically, it would usually have been DOT's here, I'm there, maybe, you know, the vice chair's also there, and the public. It's more of a forum for the public to talk to DOT and back and forth. This time we did it in more of a, the public meets the committee fashion, where the committee was able to get feedback from the public, and DOT was also there to talk to the committee back and forth. So we kind of have like two levels of the chain to see what folks want, residents, as well as DOT to kind of either receive feedback from both sides, community and residents, and to give feedback on what's doable and what isn't. So we have some expertise here beyond the community and the public. And we were doing this to mainly get feedback, to kind of get two things done at once, to get feedback on the committee's changes to DOT's proposal, and to just see what people think about the proposal from DOT as well. And I think it went pretty well. It was packed in here. There wasn't enough seats, and we got a pretty wide range of feedback. We also launched a feedback form online so that people who didn't come, or even those who did come, can give feedback and help us get, you know, an idea of what thoughts are from those who weren't able to attend. The feedback was almost even. So in person, we had about maybe a 7-3 or 6-4 ratio, like about 60% negative feedback on the plan from DOT, about 30 to 40% positive on the plan from DOT. A vast majority of the points of feedback matched the changes that the committee came up with. We came up with 3 main changes. The first main change was to essentially cut out the protected bike lane sections planned for Kingston and Brooklyn between Empire and Lefferts because the street's narrow, and the bike lanes, if protected, the installation would stop cars from being able to stop and have somebody go around you. And that's a concern. People came with a negative connotation because they expect that to happen. Like, people think of Kingston being too narrow for a protected bike lane, and that was a big point of concern. Yeah, we addressed that before that meeting happened, but that was by far the biggest issue we heard. And we had that taken care of. We wanted to make sure that the bike lane, if installed, is not protected, is at least paint in some form so that people can either double park or have deliveries, and it would completely stop the street from being usable. The second main change we made was changing, saving parking. We want, right now the plan, mainly through daylighting, is slated to remove about 54 parking spots. Now, people were against that quite a lot because it's 54 parking spots, and we hear people circling blocks for hours to find one spot, so losing 54 sounds like a big problem. So part of the changes that we made was to have DOT revisit that and only, instead of daylighting up and down both those streets, just daylight around schools and places of interest. So if you're out of school, you have a daylit corner, so you wouldn't have like large numbers of children crossing the street while cars are coming down 30 miles per hour and they can't really see what's coming. Of course, you know, it's best to not try to cross if the sign doesn't say walk, but people don't behave that way in reality, so we want to at least have DOT account for that in street design around schools where it matters and around places where people, you know, are often pedestrians. Not so much up and down every block because that would kind of take away too much parking. Now, this is also in the context of the fact that there are signs that New York State is going to make parking at parking near crosswalks illegal anyway. So we lose a lot more than 54 spots in the next few years because our assembly person also sponsored a bill to make it illegal to remove New York City's ability to have people be allowed to park next to a crosswalk, which essentially daylights the entire district anyway, if that law were to pass. So it doesn't quite look like we may have.
Is it Assemblymember Cunningham?
Yes.
Wait, can you explain that again?
So right now, New York City, at the state level, New York City we have a right to make it legal to park 15 feet from a crosswalk.
It's an exemption.
Right? It's an
State law.
exemption essentially from
Okay.
state law. It's illegal everywhere else in the state to do that,
Okay.
but it's legal in New York City. And there is a bill that's not passed yet, but it's going through the motions that would remove that from New York City entirely.
Why?
Because safety, because of the whole thing, the whole idea of daylighting. Yeah, we're planning to take that away.
Yeah.
Daylighting is when within 15 feet of a crosswalk, the curbs are extended so that people cannot park there, and the curbs extended so that people can walk out essentially into the street, which is now no longer the street. It's the extension of the curb, so you can walk out and see better what cars are coming up to you. So you can see if you want to cross against the light or not.
So you can stand on the sidewalk. I know. I don't get it either.
Right, but the issue is behavior. We know people don't do that. So is it becoming a bit of an abdication of responsibility to not fix it so people don't do that?
Okay, you know what the problem is? People who park in the crosswalk.
Yes.
And then I have to like go out into the street to see if the light has changed.
Yes.
Can we fix that before we take away parking 15
I
feet from
agree
the
with you.
crosswalk?
Enforcement.
That's already illegal.
I agree with you.
But why is it not enforced, right? I don't have a problem with somebody parking next to the crosswalk. I have a problem with somebody parking in the crosswalk, which happens all the time.
Yeah.
Why are we passing this blizzard of laws, some of which are unreasonable, and not enforcing the ones everybody agrees are reasonable? Though you and I had this conversation, but,
We did.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, we can all agree that you shouldn't park in the crosswalk and there should be enforcement for that. But I'm just giving context on what's happening. So that, I agree that we could probably even include that in a resolution one of these days. That might be
We
a good
should.
idea.
Yeah,
Um,
because the neck down or the extension, as they say, cars are parking right on top of that. I showed you pictures of that. Okay, so I don't understand, what are they doing here? I don't know. You know how you have, let me explain, you know how you have the extension, am I saying it correctly? Where they extend out, where you can stand outside, you know?
Daylighting?
Okay, that's what it is.
Yeah, it's called daylighting.
Alright, so with that extension, I find cars are parked on top of that. Okay, I'll show a picture, while you talking, I'll show you exactly what I'm saying, that's the picture of it. I said, interesting, this is the new thing now. Okay.
Usually there's a elevated curb, so I don't know, unless the car is on
Right,
top of the curb.
right.
Also, Dante, you don't have any printouts of our changes, right? And then you printed a bunch last meeting. If you can bring a couple, I mean, I can also show everyone here, I have them on my screen, but I'm not gonna go for it. It'll be fine. Yeah, guys, it's gonna be ready.
I have a lot of pictures now. I'm gonna show it to you. Cause I was, is everyone doing?
I want to go home.
Hold it on.
This is yours.
I know.
Miss Floyd.
I know, it's almost Thanksgiving,
That
right?
makes no sense.
Should be
Exactly.
Yes.
So this is what it,
I'm sure.
Oh my God.
where is it?
And then on other streets where they have these bump outs, like on Rogers with the bike lane, where they've gone along the
Yeah,
bus
so
lane
it's
where they go
basically
along
just
the
on
bump
the
out.
sidewalk.
Like,
But that's the extension that they've
Yeah.
done, I'm sorry.
there's cars double parked
I'm
all
sorry.
down the
Yeah.
street, because they can't park where the curb extensions are.
Mhm.
So like every single night, the cars are double parked on one side of the street.
Okay.
Narrow.
Well, at least they're only double parking on
Yeah,
one side,
side,
'cause
yeah.
I love it when they double park on both
Both
sides,
sides,
so you're
yeah.
like this going
Mhm,
through,
mhm.
it's
Yeah.
crazy.
That's the
It's
worst.
like no regard for anyone else.
Alright, so
It's
can I continue
also-
the report real quick?
It's also a problem, there's not enough parking.
Right, that's
As the
not,
city reduces parking, the problem gets even
Yes.
bigger.
Yeah.
yes,
And
it's true.
the thing is, people are not giving up their cars because of this, they're
No.
just behaving illegally.
Right.
That's the thing that we've all noticed.
So the changes, as Dante's looking for the paper, I have the soft copy here. So it's upside down for you, unfortunately. But, so the change here, this is removing these two parts of the potential bike and making it either paint, right, in a bit, making this paint so that it wouldn't narrow the street. The second change was, essentially making the buffers on the potential a little bit bigger. Because the other issue we heard from people when they were giving feedback in person, and even virtually, was that they're afraid to drop kids off on the side of the bike lane because instead of walking off to a safe curb, you're walking into another lane of moving vehicles and you can get hit. Now the thing about that, the bike lane is not just next to the travel lane, there's a buffer. So there's a zone where bikes don't travel. So we thought about that, but we wanna widen that zone a bit more. Since it's a school safety project, we wanna have, children getting a bigger space, a bigger safe zone. So you're not just walking into a almost backward bike lane where you're 2 feet from a bike coming at you. And part of that involves using the existing bike travel lane to trade for the buffer. So we're asking them to widen the buffer at the expense of the bike lane and not at the expense of the vehicle section of the street. There we go.
Thank you.
And the third change was regarding daylight. They were going to daylight almost all the way down Kingston and Brooklyn. Yeah.
Oh, you wanna use that?
It's okay, yeah. They're going to daylight almost all the way down Kingston and Brooklyn. In addition to the bike lane installations, and they're asking them to reduce this as much as they can. But also in the face of impending legislation that would daylight everywhere in the city. So that's the report. We got a lot of feedback on these. I think it's roughly half and half positive and negative, but the outlier is the online feedback form. So far, the online form has 23 responses, and every single response is positive. Every single response to the online feedback form for the BOT plan, including our changes, is supportive. We have a section where every question's here, we get people's emails, we get where they live. About 60% of them live in this district. About 13% of them don't know. And
They don't know if
they don't know if they live in the, I didn't provide exact boundaries, so I just asked them if they live within the district. A few of them don't know, and about a quarter of them do not live in the district. Right? They all gave their cross streets for their block, so we can verify how many live in the district. And yeah, 100% of the responses have been positive. And this is even before the changes that we implement.
areas where they wanna do the daylighting, are those areas where there have actually been accidents, or are they just?
They're not areas with accidents. There have been accidents on some of those, but they didn't pick them because they were accidents.
I mean, they wanna do everywhere.
Is there a local law that requires it?
The local law requires daylighting, not everywhere, but it requires it in the city, and there's also a law that requires bike lanes. And right now, DOT is supposed to have built 20 times more bike lanes than they have built already.
That's right.
They're 5% done and they're overdue, so they're kind of just, they're putting them down, they just wanna know where. And at least as a committee, I'm trying to make sure DOT at least puts them in places that are not terrible, and in ways that it would not kind of kill travel in the area. Which is why the Kingston piece between those two streets needs to go, because it just will not work.
So DOT is putting all of these bikes in these various areas. Does the money come into the community, or it just goes straight into DOT and their funding? This is the question. It's
Well,
just their funding.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So that's
so
why,
it's their resources, so they.
it's
Yeah.
theirs, and it's their streets, you know. It's asked because in that same meeting, they stated that these bikes, the bikers should have insurance. Okay, cause they create problems, you know, it cannot be the driver all the time that's always accused of hitting them, whereas they are reckless themselves. So if they have responsibilities to have their license or whatever registration, that's what I have to have, you know, bikers should have the same as well, and you would have less casualties. You would. They have to be responsible, because they tell you they ride recklessly. These bus drivers, they stop all of a sudden because a biker goes right across in front of them, okay? I stop all of a sudden, because now I have to look both ways before I cross on one way, okay? No, so it has to be, people have to be accountable for their actions. It's just throwing this thing out, and that was a big thing at that meeting. They were really arguing about that. They were. So, a lot of it was no, I know that, okay?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, in the meeting, I had logged them, I think, there were, I think midway through, there were about 8 people opposing and about 6 supporting it, and there were a few more oppositions later on in the meeting. So, yeah, it was maybe at most about 3/4 were against the DOT plan in the original form.
I think that people need to be accountable. Once people are accountable for their actions, you won't have this resistance. I believe so. And also stop taking apart the
So,
spaces.
I noticed that no changes were made to the Fenimore and Rutland bike lane proposals. And I know that the feedback that I've heard from my neighbors is just like kind of shock and, just no. And so I wanted to propose that I know you said the committee already voted, but I wanted to propose that we cut this back. I'm not going to oppose the bike loop around the Wingate campus, if that's what you want, but there just seems to be no reason for the Fenimore and Rutland bike lane other than to have another bike lane. I don't think the data supports that there are more crashes on the streets without bike lanes than on the streets with bike lanes, like Newport and Lincoln. And I don't think the data supports that, and the guy from DOT could, more or less admitted this. I don't think it supports that, there are fewer crashes after the installation of bike lanes than before. So, and I actually do bike. I bike up Fenimore, and I've never really had any issue, and I think that's the reason no one's ever asked for one before. And so, I just wanted to ask, if I propose cutting back the bike lane, because we have a particular problem with double parking on my block, that it would always cause problems being able to pass by. I mean, essentially, you would never be able to enforce the bike lane, and if you did attempt to enforce it, that you would basically stop us from driving our own block, which would be illegal, but if it's never enforced, there's no improvement in safety for the bikers. So,
To respond to
Yeah.
that, I get the idea. Two things I want to ask. So the first thing is there were a lot of concerns about speeding on Fenimore, and there was an incident where a car flew into a storefront on Fenimore, I think, in Nostrand, was it, how's it still, they complained about that at one point.
Well, was
But
it
they were
on
coming down Nostrand.
Nostrand or was it Nostrand?
No, I believe they were coming across Fenimore and
Oh.
slid into the business because it's facing the direction against Fenimore travel.
No, it's not.
And they face,
Fenimore
Oh, yeah.
They face
Fenimore-
the
flying.
Fenimore goes
Okay,
west and they were
towards-
facing east.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so the car was going towards the
Yeah,
store
that
and
makes sense.
ran off the road and hit him. Now, with concerns like that, given that Fenimore was denied a speed bump, they're not getting cameras. The only tool left in the box is a bike lane to narrow the visual line of the street, which has been proven to slow people down.
Right, but it isn't proven to improve safety in our district. And, you know, of course, we're all concerned about those kinds of crashes, but like the conversation I was just having with one of my neighbors is that, narrowing, like all of these street redesigns are only going to impact people who are drivers who are law-abiding in the first place, right? Like the people that go up, that are out of control enough to get up on the sidewalk and crash into a store or take out parked cars or crash into the fence or whatever, like they're not going to be deterred by a speed camera, a speed bump, or a bike lane, right? The only thing that is gonna stop them is concrete barriers. And we've actually suggested to some of the property owners on Bedford, which is that Bedford seems to be, it's really the avenues, I think it's like Bedford that are an issue. In spite of the fact that Bedford has a bike lane, that they put up, that they asked DOT to put up, if they could put up bollards at the corners. You know, but, you know, short of that, like the people that will pay attention to this and avoid driving in the bike lane and slow down are the law-abiding people. The non-law-abiding people are not affected by any of this.
Fair.
And like I'd actually made this complaint years ago. There was a crash on Flatbush Avenue at Chester Court, and so when the 71st precinct was at one of our neighborhood meetings, I made this complaint years ago. I said, "What are you doing about this?" And he was basically like, you know, that person was high, they were out of control, you know, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I felt like I was really being blown off and I wasn't happy. But like I eventually realized that he was right, because these kinds of, like as a driver, you know that to do that, you have to be totally out of control, or you really don't know how to drive. It's not like it's somebody sideswiping somebody or, you know, like hitting somebody, like rear-ending somebody. That kind of thing is due to carelessness, inattention, whatever. But to go up on the sidewalk, you have to be like completely impaired. That's a person who should not be driving, period. Right, and so the street redesigns, like, they'll make an impact if there's something about the design of your street that encourage, more than any other street that encourages speeding, like if you're on the off-ramp to a highway, for example, that's a case for a street redesign, I think, right? But like all of our streets, like, they're just streets, and if they're, you know, there's no clear, like, evidence that any of these sidewalks are any worse in terms of crashes than the streets with bike lanes or vice versa, right? Like, it's just general behavioral issues with bad drivers in Brooklyn. And I don't think anybody disagrees that people with 100 violations should be taken off the road. You know, like, and there are laws, there are dangerous driver abatement laws, they're just not enforced, you know, like I said, to my earlier point, they're not enforced. So, you know, nobody's hostile to bikers, everybody's in support of safety, it's just like these measures are gonna create collateral consequences and we don't want them. That's why everybody wants a speed bump, because it doesn't create those collateral consequences.
Okay. Now, the two quick replies to that. One,
Yeah.
the feedback we've gotten on the online
Yeah.
forum, the only criticism we've gotten so far, I think, has been that we are making the plan too conservative. So the feedback we've gotten in person, some people are saying it's not, like, we're not restricting it enough, we're not, like, toning down the DOT plan enough. And it's the opposite. People are saying that they think we're going too far in removing, like, like the Kingston and Brooklyn section, for example, in the daylight. So we're in a middle. We're trying to like have a happy medium here, but surely the most important parts of this are the protected bike lanes on Kingston and Brooklyn and around Wingate Park. I'm not sure if Edinburgh and Rutland really need bike lanes, but the ones that will move the needle so far, where all the speeding happens, where all the issues are like southern Kingston and Brooklyn. So we're gonna definitely keep those. But what I'm saying is, while we've seen like an even amount of opposition to, removing more bike lanes versus removing less, I think either way, the most important part of this is the Kingston and Brooklyn and the Wingate Loop, and that's the part that we're gonna like work the hardest to keep. So yeah, take your point on that. Okay. Yeah, any other questions?
Yeah, regarding when we mentioned the feedback positive versus negative,
Yeah.
are you considering also the results of Yankee Berman's survey?
Yeah, they said that too.
Because that was like overwhelmingly negative.
Yeah, but it works out to technically also be even, because about 90% of those people were also people who primarily drive. And the district is about 60-40
Oh, so you're
drivers
waiting
versus-
feedback.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
we weren't aware of that, that's all.
yeah. I'm not necessarily weighing it against the online form that was, launched recently. We know the 900 are definitely taken into consideration. Like we saw that survey too. But yeah, there is a bit of a waiting going on because 900 drivers from who live on Kingston, we understand, would be opposed to it, and most of it didn't specify what part of Kingston was being affected, and it also didn't show the plan in its entirety either. So people hear bike lane on Kingston, they're thinking Kingston and Crown, Carroll, that area, which no one owns a bike lane on. So of course they'd be opposed to that, even I am. Like most people in this district would be. So that makes a lot of sense why they'd say no to it. I would expect them to. I'm actually surprised it wasn't 100% no. It was about 92% against. I'm surprised it wasn't even higher than that. But yeah, so it's being weighted, but not like definitively.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stay on.
Yeah,
It's
next.
8:30.
Yes.
Yeah. No, the next. What are we gonna do? Any other questions for me?
I'm gonna do public safety real fast.
Yeah, go ahead, Benson.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Just some notes were sent to me, so I'm just gonna go over the public safety notes. FDNY came to the meeting last Thursday and gave comments on neighborhood statistics. From the voting items for the public safety, they had 5 SLA come before the committee. So Silver Rice, they don't have the address, but we'll get it. Silver Rice was approved as is and was directed to the general board, so there was no issues with that. Trove, Brooklyn, that one was approved by the committee, it's being sent to the general board as well, no issues there. Red Chiconia was approved and is being directed to the general board, no issues there. Fiona's, there was just a couple of requests from the committee. The committee asked the representatives to amend the hours of Thursday through Saturday from 1 p.m. to 4 a.m. to update that to 1 p.m. to 2 a.m. on the application. And so they're going to move that one forward as well. So if the applicant does that, they'll present before the board. Nia's working with the applicant to get that in order. And then the last application, 887 Nost LLC. There were a couple of recommendations from the committee. The committee had recommended for the applicant to clarify their business hours, recommended that the hours be amended to 2 a.m., recommended that the applicant compile additional signatures of support. There was a little mix-up there. The applicant had already provided the typical signatures of support ahead of time, so we cleared that up thereafter. They'd already supplied that. And then the applicant will not be calendared until they get all of this information to the board office. So Mia is working with the applicant diligently to try to get them on the agenda for Thursday. I would say typically the way that we would do this is it looks like the committee recommended all of these, but 2 of them have some work that they need to do. So what we can do is definitely for the 3, we can put all 5 on the agenda. And then if by the time we get to general board, the applicants haven't provided the additional information or fulfilled the committee's request, then you can just amend the agenda at the beginning of the meeting to remove them.
Are all these renewals?
I will confirm that. That's not on my notes, but I'll confirm.
Yeah, I feel like Red Chiconia came to us last year, and they only need renewals every 2 years.
Yeah, 2
so-
years, yeah. I know Silver Ice is definitely renewal. Trove has been here.
Isn't Trevor opening up?
No, Trove is I think just now opening up.
Yeah,
I'll
Trevor
confirm.
opened today.
Where is it?
Where's,
Next to Brick's house on Sterling.
Yeah.
oh, sorry, like,
She
Yeah.
took over the, what was glue.
Was good,
well,
yeah.
okay. Well, there are no issues with the committee. So that was the public safety.
Somebody went
Yes,
red
okay.
Any
something.
questions?
Red Chiconia.
Red
How
Chiconia.
do you spell that?
CHACONIA.
Have there
And
been-
Fiona's, right?
Fiona's.
Fionas.
CIONA.
Was there any update on the safety side, like from NYPD or?
So from the notes I have here, there was nothing highlighted.
And just, I guess this is my issue, but I emailed you about that when the 71st precinct met with our neighborhood association, they said that they needed more officers, and we asked them how many, and they said 50. So I asked if we could put in that request to the city under the district needs statement, and if we would to do that.
I'd already submitted the district needs, but I'll just reach back out.
I mean, it might not
Why not
be,
20?
it might not be near, they're not gonna get, nobody
50.
ever gets what they ask the
Right,
city for.
Right.
So if you ask for 50, they might get 20, but you know, anything is an improvement
Yeah, you
because,
you have to.
you know, they don't
You
have
have to
enough
ask, yeah.
officers to deal with all of our
Is this one precinct or many?
71st.
Just
Oh,
the
just the
71st.
71st.
Apparently they need a lot
So
of
first need 50
It's
more
actually
cops.
many. It's
Yeah,
actually-
for
it's
what?
actually many.
All the
We-
crime?
Well, I mean, you know, the eastern end of the district is complaining, my part of the district, somebody was complaining, you know, about crime on the Flatbush corridor, there's a lot, like, so there was a guy in the Dwayne Reed who was literally hitting customers.
Okay, but
But that's-
honestly, it's not a police issue that we have, it's a mental health
Health
issue
issue.
that we have. Cause
Yeah,
all
you
the
put in
issues
too
that we have on
much.
Flatbush are
Yes.
mental health related.
Yes.
We don't have
Yes.
people coming in stealing
See,
stuff, we have people
yes.
coming in screaming in our faces,
Yes,
asking us for
exactly.
money
No,
and food.
this guy was hitting people.
Okay, but
Well,
most
well,
days.
That's one. But to
Like I was in
everybody-
Risbo the other night and it was so uncomfortable for everyone in there that the woman came in and he says she comes in like once, twice a day. It was like horrid.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I have to tell you, like, over
Happens
the
here,
last
so.
10 years or so, like, there have been these characters, and in the past, we had business owners who would just literally chuck these people, like, grab these people by the arm and chuck them out. But I don't think that's the done thing anymore.
Well, some people
But-
are and some people are feeding them and giving them
Yes.
money and then whatever, but there are no social service people out on the avenues. None.
And the cops are
And
trained-
the
ain't
thing
trained
is,
to be-
right, the thing is,
No.
right, like, at the end of the,
Then
I
if the
think
cops
we
are
all
killed them now,
I think
then
we all
another problem.
recognize that they need help, but how do you deal with it? Who do you actually call and how quickly do they respond? And at the end of the day,
But if they
If
were
there's-
just there, like during the week, they would see what was going on. If they just spent like
So-
3 hours on a Monday, it would be pretty obvious what's going on. Because like,
maybe a mixture of like social.
So
people,
maybe,
police,
yeah,
whatever.
adult protective services.
Right.
but like how do we
You know,
get
with
them
the
out
city.
there?
Yeah.
Dante, any ideas
Is
how we
this
could
like-
reach out for that?
No ideas off the top of my head right now. I
Right.
mean,
Oh,
we're
doctor,
talking
could you come to
we're
me because we gotta get home? Yes, I'm not.
No, no, we're continuing.
I mean,
I mean, his report.
I have ideas, but I'm not gonna go through them.
but I mean, look, that's not the only thing. There's always also people requesting traffic enforcement. Like every year, people in my neighborhood will say, I want the cops to sit at the end of my block to stop speeding.
get children.
My block. And you know, like no, they can't do that, right? You know, and so there's just generally a need for more, and then all the illegal smoke shops and everything, you know. There's just our request to have officers be present at our meetings, there's just generally, like,
We run almost every
I think
subway
that,
station too.
you know,
Okay, so are you finished?
That was
No,
public
he-
safety.
That's
it?
We're finished,
Public
okay.
safety, hold on, we're not done yet, we still have to go through the EM report.
You got
now.
another one?
Yeah.
Alright, hold on, before you go to public,
Yeah.
so before you go to the DM,
Cause I don't wanna leave at 9.
Right.
don't
Don't
before you go to that.
last time?
Well, this is the new day.
Could we
Right.
just
Nine,
get
I'm
back to
saying
the
nine,
This
meeting?
is the new day, that's,
and then remember
You
that,
go.
George,
Okay.
our owner.
Before,
who's
just
bought
one last
a
meeting.
It's
Skills.
still empty.
Right.
Youth
yeah.
services and libraries,
Right, you
We've
can't,
met.
you can't speed past committees. Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
we've met,
no, I
I'm
just
gonna keep
wanted
it,
to keep it flowing,
I'm gonna keep it short.
Go ahead.
yes.
We met and we just put together our program, so at the annual meeting, you will get that, you'll get it right.
Thanks. Okay, onto the DM report.
All right, public notice, installation of loading zones in our community district. I'm not gonna go through the whole reason why, but there is a local law requiring, that at least 5 loading zones be, installed annually in each neighborhood tabulation area. Right now, the proposed locations in this district are Clarkson Avenue between Bedford and Flatbush, 41 Clarkson Avenue, a tentative, an address, for reference. Crown Street between Franklin Avenue and Washington Avenue, 35 Crown Street. And then Midwood Street, Utica, between Utica and Schenectady, 806 Midwood Street. Right now, those are the tentative neighborhood loading zones that they're planning to implement in our district. We have a flyer out, so if you know of anyone who absolutely despises of these things, feel free to go onto DOT. This actually leads right to their portal where you can go ahead and submit comment. So we have some on the front table, it's been in the e-blast, and we'll continue to blast that out over the next couple of weeks. A couple of construction notices, there are partial sidewalk and parking restrictions taking place throughout the community district. That's going to be taking place November into mid-December, so we'll make sure to have those notices in the e-blast. There are also the rehabilitation of pedestrian ramps throughout Crown Heights, more so in CB8, but there are some in North Crown Heights in our district. So that's also in our e-blast as well, so look out for that. There also is water main installations taking place in the district. Tomorrow on the 19th, installation will take place President Street between Albany and Kingston Avenue. On Wednesday, it'll take place at same location. Thursday, the intersection of President and Albany. Thursday and Friday will be the intersection of President and Albany. During these water main installations, there will be no water shutoffs. So if you know anyone who apparently just happens to not have water, let us know, but water shouldn't be shut off. There are some public hearings coming up. There's a proposed closure of MSK 394. This is so much. Okay, I'm not gonna read all of this, but there's a couple of school closures and basically they're merging programs throughout the district. Yeah, so we have the proposed closure of MSK 394 in building K21 Oat, the end of the year 2024 to 2025 school year, and the proposed opening and co-location of Central Brooklyn Literacy Academy with Explore Empower Charter School in that same building beginning next year. So basically they're just shifting some programs around. There's another proposed merger of Brooklyn Academy of Sciences and the Environment with the Brooklyn School for Music and Theater in building K440 for the next school year. So there's 2 public hearings that are going to take place. The first one's on December 3rd, the next one's on December 9th. We'll be sure to have, it looks like this in the e-blast. They're already in there, but you can essentially just go in and click and it will take you to where the public hearing information is. The Landmarks Preservation Commission has noticed a public hearing for 203 Maple Street in our district. This application is to replace windows is to replace windows. That public hearing is scheduled for the 26th, and that will be held at 1 Center Street, the 9th floor. DYCD will be holding a public hearing that will take place December 4th at 3 p.m. at 2 Lafayette Street, the 14th floor, via Zoom. This public hearing will be an opportunity for the public, especially youth, to share with government agencies supports, issues, and concerns as it pertains to DYCD programming. Individuals will be called in the order that they register and will have up to 3 minutes. The Department of Buildings, well, let me do it like this. On June 24th of this year, Local Law 71 of 2024 lapsed into law. Local Law 71 of 2024 amends Article 323 of Title 28 of the Administrative Code regarding periodic inspections of parking structures to increase the frequency of parking structure inspections. So we'll have that in the e-blast. So if you know, we don't really have major parking structures, but you never know with future development in this district. So if you know of anyone who's interested in that, direct them to that. And then this is the DOE, the Community Education Councils will be holding a public hearing on the Department of Education and School Construction Authority proposed November 2024 amendment to the FY 2025 to 2029 capital plan from November through January. So we will put that information. We want to make sure anyone who relates to any of this information can appear and provide comments. So we'll have all that in the e-blast. And then the last couple of things is administratively, we do have the leaf bags. So if you know of anyone who needs leaf bags, just have them reach out to the board office. We're trying to limit no more than 2 per household, but we have a lot, so we want to get rid of them. So if you know folks who need leaf bags, just grab them on the way out. But we have them there, so direct people this way. Again, we have the loading zone expansion, direct people to that if they want to comment on that. Always asking people to sign up for the e-blast. We get a lot of information. We'll continue to dump it into the e-blast. Just to note, the general board this month will be on Thursday, not next week. So it will be November 21st, this Thursday, at Jackie Robinson Middle School at 46 McKeever Place. So I just want to thank the school for working with us to get that space. Update, DSNY, I've been coordinating with them. They are ready to go to come to your committee in December. So I've asked them to come to do a presentation on containerization because we've heard all the complaints. So now people can have DSNY in front of them and ask those questions. It'll be at the Environmental Protection, yeah. So I'll create a flyer for that and we'll disseminate that, but they'll be here, and then folks can ask their questions accordingly. And then the last thing I actually need for the executive committee to do, because it's in our bylaws, is that there are members who have been missing committee meetings and general board meetings. So we want to make sure that folks who are not showing up, essentially, they get their opportunity to defend themselves. And so per the bylaws, the executive committee actually has to essentially bring charges forward to these board members for their absenteeism. So essentially the way that this will work is I'm asking the executive committee to allow me to start that process. So essentially the board office, what we'll do is we'll reach out to them to make sure that they're still alive, they're still okay, just do kind of a wellness check. And to see if they can continue their obligations. If they're unable to do that or we don't get in contact with them, which has happened so far, we will reach out with them with a letter basically stating all the meetings that they've missed, and then they have an opportunity to state their reason why they've missed these meetings and to defend themselves at the executive committee meeting next month or the general board next month. Ideally it would be executive, but so I'm asking the committee for that authorization.
Alright. Do we have any motions to authorize drivers for members who haven't been?
You gonna make a motion?
Yeah.
But you,
Yeah,
I have a
I
question.
Perfect.
You said you're gonna
Yeah, we
reach
did.
out to them
Yeah, I thought.
We've been reaching out.
as opposed to sending a letter with all of the, the times that they've missed meetings and letting them know what the, ramification will be for that,
Right,
which they should already know, once they apply to become a member,
right.
so.
I agree with that, but the reality is, what I've learned in this job is that a lot of people join boards and they don't know anything about the media board, so the way that I have to operate is that I have to operate that they know nothing.
They have that option to do the training.
Okay.
Just because you do a training doesn't understand that, so a training at Borough Hall doesn't, that's not how our board operates, right? Like, our boards have specific bylaws, specific procedures, that we operate. Very elementary style of training that Borough Hall does, but like, we're an independent agency, so, we create and navigate here accordingly. So, I try my very best not to put people on the spot, even though this is their obligations and they're adults. I completely agree, but things happen and, people forget about me. They forget about me. They don't think about me when things happen, so they don't reach out and say, this happened to me. So what I'm doing is I'm being courteous. Very quick call. Hey, are you still alive? Can you still fulfill? If they don't pick up, they're getting the letter. But if they pick up and they're like, oh, this happened and we're good to go, then it's good to go. And that's what it will be. But if they don't respond, they will be getting the letters and, they'll be coming.
So then do we get new members?
That is a question for the borough president. I've seen it happen very differently,
Yes.
where there are midterm appointments, and then I've also
So you
heard that there are no midterm appointments. So I will leave that to the borough president's office.
Okay.
I have.
I agree.
But at least we have less people
Hold on,
to
let's
get
keep
to
it
court.
to maybe two more questions, because we have to continue the agenda.
No, I understand. I
You
have a
gotta go
quick
home.
question about, your report.
Sure.
Did sanitation have any response about the collection schedules on Flatbush?
If I reached out to them, they haven't responded, and if I forgot to reach out, I'm not sure.
Okay,
So let me confirm.
okay. Should I send
One
you
more
an email?
I have a question.
Where's my list? Let me do this. Collection, Flatbush?
Yes. What are the collection schedules?
But that
That's
should be on
online.
their website.
It's online,
Yes,
but-
listen, you go online, you go and see it.
Yeah.
They gonna let them see me.
Yeah, because I printed one out for ours back there, but.
So you said there's a loading, dock or loading zone
Northern Zone expansion.
for, you had mentioned, what was it, Crown, Franklin?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Washington, loading for what?
Well, this one does not, so the way that they do this is this. There are different types of loading zones. You have commercial metered parking, you have neighborhood loading zones, you have the truck loading zones, you have the hotel, which we don't have, hopefully, yet, and then no parking. So essentially what they're doing is, here are the locations, but they're not telling us if it will be a truck loading or a neighborhood loading.
See what I'm saying? So we haven't added, for a community, family community, they wanna put loading in a family community. This should be placed in a commercial area, which is on Empire.
But you could use the neighborhood loading zones. So like, if you have a big, massive development and it's hard for, I don't know, the seniors to get out of their Ubers, or it's hard for Amazon to deliver packages,
Correct.
then they can do that. So it's a balance, you know,
Alright,
kind of depends on the block.
okay, so I'm thinking this Crown and Franklin, since they have that new 591, okay, I'm thinking that's what's promoting this. Because other than that, there are designated areas where we have this. Where we have people dropping off.
Yeah.
Alright,
Well, definitely, submit that comment.
I did
Okay.
that,
I'll get that.
thank you.
okay, back to order. Do we have any motions to authorize, charges for members who've been absent? Benny?
I'll put the motion forward.
Alright,
Second, everybody second?
any second?
I'll second it. You said he had a question?
Did you have a question?
Yeah, it's like,
Oh,
I was
yeah,
just gonna say
yeah.
registration,
Let's
so-
get
do you have any seconds to that motion here?
I'm so sorry.
Registration for the
Alright, you have a second from,
You're
you
right.
have the
Yeah,
application?
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So there's no point in interim appointments.
Okay, do we have
Yeah,
any
well,
opposed?
we should be getting, yeah.
No, I
Okay.
don't.
No, no, opposed, we
Yeah,
all.
alright, common consent, not to the authorized, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So
All
we'll
in
take care of
favor?
that tomorrow,
Yes.
make calls and do everything.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna leave the chairperson's report. And we're gonna go straight into the agenda. So
Read
far,
it, read it.
So we're gonna leave the chairperson's report,
Right, just right.
right?
You already gave it, Jasper did.
Right. And we're gonna go into the agenda. So far, we have the 4 or 5 SOAs, right? Is gonna be part of that. In business session, we have the BSA variance from Mueller, and we have the school safety changes from transportation. It's gonna be important that that's not gonna be like a approval of the BLT plan, it's essentially these changes need to be implemented for anything to work out. So I think I'll probably rather have the transportation one go first, cause it might need be like fresh minds to just understand the changes first. And then the SLAs and the BSA variant, is that okay, Suki?
That's fine.
Alright,
I lost some of it.
Didn't we not
Yes.
finish last month's meeting?
See, right on.
we
What
didn't,
happened with all
the
that?
SLA still went through, we assisted them.
Okay.
Yeah, so essentially, we sent out letters that basically said, we have no reservation about this application. The board was unable to recommend because,
Right.
you know, we didn't have a, you know, quorum or
Okay,
whatever
so
it
we
was.
don't have to put
But
the
there's no,
background
like-
is-
No, they got
Yeah.
their,
Thank
they got
you.
their renewals, yeah.
And also the land
Yeah, what about
preservation,
the land?
everybody.
Okay.
They got their, they got their renewals.
Alright.
Because, Fred's
Window
very much of the
thing,
mind when
yes,
the
yes.
boards, like when they do what they need to do and the board
We-
Broke it.
doesn't
Yeah.
show.
Cause I
Yeah.
noticed that
Right.
203,
Shouldn't
I
keep it
noticed
there.
203 got a
Oh,
hearing.
no, I think
So-
it was really more on the other one also.
Okay.
Alright.
It was like 20 minutes on that broken.
Yeah.
Alright, so the
Okay,
whole
so the
thing,
agenda will be called to
yeah, call to order, as a quick note, we're gonna use some time guidelines, so, for the agenda, we're gonna have every section generally timed out, so that they wouldn't just drag on forever. We'll have a good time container, so the call to order should be about 5 minutes long.
We were in there, we put the time that certain now.
You have to do it now, but I'll do it now, so we can, when they format it, we can have the time container next to it, so we just know how long each section should be.
Don't tell me, I'll be timekeeper.
That's fine, please do. That's fine.
Okay, that's.
So yeah, roll calls to order 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Do the roll call after that, 5 minutes on that.
Roll call takes about 10
No,
minutes.
Maybe, okay, 10?
I
mean,
if
10's
I
fine.
remember correctly, I took.
10's fine. Let me give you
Okay,
10.
hold on.
Yeah, you did time it.
I wrote it down, but I don't have it.
Yeah, it's like two.
Like I was working with 12 because when I timed TV 14, it was 4 minutes.
Okay,
I
so,
figured you might need an extra one, but
right.
6, I don't know.
So we call to order, we've got 5 SLAs.
Yeah. So the,
Then we have the public session.
yeah,
You want me to?
the call to order, the roll call, the minutes approval.
Hold a bit, hold a bit, hold a bit. And then the acknowledgements.
I'm
Then we go
gonna
into
speed
the
this up.
business
Okay, so
section.
first one, we got the call to order, right?
Yeah.
Next, number 2, do we have any applications? We have
Yes.
the BSA,
Yeah.
The
all
five you got,
Yeah,
that
so
you
it's-
called.
Yeah.
what else?
Then the public session.
Is there any, I don't think there's any presentations, no one's
Good.
reached out for
All right.
presentations.
No.
Okay.
Public
Acknowledgements.
session come first before the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
right,
What
right.
is public hearing?
So only the BSA, okay.
Everything so far is perspective.
And then we go into the business session.
Okay, public comment,
You got a public comment?
yeah. So
Okay.
it will go call to order, then the BSA presentation, and the other, is there another presentation? That's the only thing.
No, that's right, right.
And then, that's all the presentation, oh, then the SLAs, a little quick boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And then public comment,
Well, if you go normal like how we usually do, but you kind of place things a
That's
little
what-
different, so.
I'm looking
that's-
right at the agenda.
Me too.
Yeah.
All right, so then, after
Alright.
public comment, we go
Acknowledgements,
acknowledgements and then we go into the business session.
So the acknowledgements, I thought we could maybe
yeah, we are.
shave some time because
Yes,
they said the same thing.
yes.
over.
And the
I
same
know,
people over.
yes.
The same people.
Yes,
Yeah.
and the same
We-
people.
No, yeah, we're gonna do that.
Yeah.
We are,
Right.
yeah,
Yes, we've told them,
yeah, we
they,
are.
they know, we don't need to hear about the
Yeah.
passports and
Yes.
stuff.
Yes.
We're good.
Then,
I
when,
think,
when the chair gets up there, the chair is essentially going to, okay, here's all the people who signed in,
yeah,
raise your hand, and we're moving
Mhm.
forward. So you
Right.
just acknowledge, if there's any information from those offices, then
no
put it on the.
information, then you come.
New
back.
information.
New, yeah, any, like, real new,
New,
like, relevant.
Update.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
like, oh, you know,
Yeah.
we're having a turkey giveaway, that's not
No,
relevant. It
But
can go on
some
the table.
flyers out and we will.
Exactly, exactly.
So tell them bring the flyers and no talk.
It is that.
Alright, so business session, then we go to roll call. And then the minutes.
Yep.
Committee reports. And then, one or the other, Dante or the up chair.
Yeah, me, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, report.
We really, we what have, we don't need a treasurer's report.
Oh.
Like we not.
Do we need a treasurer's report? You said
No, cause we had it,
Wanna do it this month?
do it this one.
Yeah, we'll do it this month.
Okay,
We
good.
didn't do it last
Oh
one.
my god,
Yeah,
there's
it
some time
was-
for that,
Oh,
they're
yeah,
gonna be
you do it
asking
quarterly?
questions.
No, we go
Every
down
other
to
month.
last time.
I mean, if it's worse comes to worse,
Right.
you know, it's given written, so if people are dying, they can read.
Alright. And then we going to the voting items.
Right.
We know those.
Yeah, SOAs, BSA.
Right, and any unfinished business.
Yesterday.
Thank God we don't have no unfinished business. No business, and then the adjournment.
Alright, good stuff.
Unfinished business is like eating leftovers.
Yeah. That's what it feels like.
Alright, move the adoption for the agenda for the next meeting to be held on November 18th. Jackie Robinson.
So,
No.
21st, no?
21st, today's the 8th. Ooh, so much close together. November 21st, Jackie Robinson School, please remember.
Yeah.
And the second there,
Oh, this is a different place.
yeah. And the second there, correct, I move the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Second by Benny.
Good, move and
Any
seconded,
opposed?
No,
opposed?
No oppositions, no.
Okay.
Alright. Accepted by all. Okay, that's it.
Nice.
Mr. Chair?
Okay. Dante, when you, tomorrow I'll send you the time estimates for each section so you can have them on the sheet. So people are expecting to move quickly.
Okay, yeah, send them right to me.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, listen, I am wondering, or can I say something? Now, majority of the committees have met very good for the past
If
couple of
there's
months.
any
and
stuff you guys need added and you want sent out ahead of time, like from your committees or whatever, please send it tomorrow so we can get it in there.
Right,
so send it
that's what I
out.
was about to say, everybody's
Yeah, yeah,
sending so that we would not
But
spend
you
a
have
lot of
committee
time.
members that are not, committee,
Chairs that are not
chairs
here.
that are not here, so maybe you need to send them a quick message
Yeah, we'll reach out.
in the morning or,
Don't forget about the, thing about Melvin.
Yeah, cool. Good. Yeah. That also has to go. We need to put that on the other.
On the new business,
I'm gonna
Yeah, but like
Like what
update, yeah.
new business?
One more?
It's gonna be in there.
Yeah, I'll make
Vote
some.
Adams.
Okay.
Yeah, and the Clove Road,
Gooseneck.
yeah, that was part of the report too. I didn't mention that. It was such a big one. This is the biggest one we ever had.
Put it up for them to know that.
Now you
And
know
also,
how
I think
feel,
there-
Ethan.
Huh?
Now you know how I feel, Ethan, every month.
I was there
Yeah.
last month, a resolution from the Parks and Recreation Committee that we didn't get to, because that was part of the voting items that we couldn't do.
Hmm.
So you might have to put that on.
what was it?
There was,
I think I remember.
yes, there was some.
Was that the last one?
We need to check that agenda again to make sure that those things get
Okay,
addressed.
right, from the last time, well, the LPCs and the SLAs, those are off. But it's the Parks Committee resolution. There was, I think, it was a written resolution that he had brought. It was part of
We gotta add
the
one
package,
to the Clove Road
but we didn't get
comment.
through it.
Okay.
So we might have to put that on again.
Where at?
Voting items, yeah. Well, just to add that to my report real quick. Oh, after the school safety section of the meeting, we also had folks from Clove Road who came in to talk about, to give feedback about the plan to have traffic exit on turn Clove Road for the supermarket. They wanted us to separate Malbone so that people can't use Malbone to enter the supermarket and have, and basically force exit towards Empire Boulevard. And we're including that along with a few demands from DOT, and a couple of the communities demands as well, so that they invest in the area and not just dump a bunch of cars on them and, exist for free essentially.
So what's the correct name for the, on the agenda?
Well,
Broad resolution?
Yeah, that's right. So yeah.
Okay, amendment to the agenda. In the business section, so I don't think it's, now it becomes roll call, minutes of the October meeting, committee reports, district managers reports, the chair report, voting items. We have 5 SLAs, we have the full board resolution and the Parks and Recreation Commission. Then we go to unfinished business, new business, and want to move for the corrected.
I move for
Is that
that.
good?
Okay,
Do you hear any opposed?
No,
okay, yeah, good.
okay.
Over to you, John.
Good, okay. Any other business? That's on the agenda?
No.
No?
Great.
Okay. Alright. Any motions to adjourn?
Adjourn, 9 o'clock.
Any opposition? Looks like you have none.
No opposition.
Okay, all good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good meeting.
Thank
you.
Yeah. On the dot, 9 p.m. Not too bad.
1 hour, 57 minutes.
Nice.
Good job.
Yeah.
Nice, congratulations.
Nice.
And he said loves if you talk a lot.
Well, I guess you have to take into consideration.
I mean, my report's like double the usual length too.
Yeah.
Because usually our reports aren't that long. My report was like twice as long as usual because of all we did last time.
But then, you have to take into consideration that you're gonna have some noisemakers and hecklers at the meeting, so you have to control
I know.
those
I
folks.
got a timer, an LED timer, so everyone
So
can
you'll
see.
be the chair for the next meeting, but
On
where's,
Thursday, yeah.
where's,
Have
where's
you
Friday?
asked for the
He's out for a couple
71st to be
weeks.
Oh,
present?
wow.
And
It's all right?
Yeah,
Don't
he's
say what's
fine.
something about that, but.
Have you asked?
could you turn off the?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Sorry, where's Sam?
Have you asked for the